True crimers, partners in crime, we need to talk about Brian Christopher Kohberger. This is the Idaho 4 case where 4 young college students tragically lost their lives in a brutal, brutal crime. The accused is Brian Christopher Kohberger. Now, he is innocent until proven guilty, but right now, in my opinion only, it doesn't look good for Brian Kohberger. Let's get into it. November 13th, 2022, the University of Idaho was rocked by a brutal crime that took the lives of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernogel, and Ethan Chapin. This case goes to trial, hopefully in August. You know how court cases can go, though. It can be extended, but the judge in this case, Judge Kipler, is really trying to move things along. So, fingers crossed, we'll see. Up until recently, most of the case was under seal, but recently a lot of the case has been becoming unsealed, and we have been getting a lot of information, especially of what the prosecution has for evidence. In my opinion, like I said, it's not looking good for Brian Kohberger. Forensic, digital, physical, circumstantial, there is all the things in this case. So we've all known about the knife sheath for quite some time. The DNA of Brian Kohberger was found on the button of the knife sheath that was under a victim. There are 2 surviving roommates, and one of them actually saw the perpetrator walk by her bedroom, and she said that he had on a mask and he had bushy eyebrows. Recently, it was released that on Brian Kohberger's phone was a selfie that was taken just hours after this crime. So the prosecution has said that they would like to introduce this to the trial to the jury so they could, judge whether his eyebrows are bushy or not. Speaking of masks, it was reported just this week that Brian Kohberger had bought a balaclava mask at Dick's Sporting Goods prior to the crime, and it was reported by the surviving roommate that saw him that this was the type of mask that the perpetrator was wearing. In bombshell news this week, the prosecution released that they have evidence that Brian Kohberger bought a K-bar knife, this sheath, and a knife sharpener on his family Amazon account 8 months prior to the crime. And then after the crime, he was looking them up again on Amazon. And in all the evidence that they found from his storage unit, his apartment, his family home, his car, no knife was found. So that's pretty damning evidence, in my opinion. In digital evidence, they have Brian Kohberger's car pinged around the area, right around the crime, but also his phone was shut off right before the crime was committed and turned back on right after. And the time that the crime was committed, his phone was shut off. And then, the car videos show that Brian's exact make and model were filmed around the crime scene during that time. And also it coincides with the movement of his phone in that area. Now, Brian Kohberger, for the longest time, wouldn't release his alibi. And when it was finally forced to be released, he says he was at a park stargazing. Well, to find out that the very park that he says he was at, first of all, was closed with a gate that night. And also, it was a cloudy night. So, I don't know how much stars he could have been gazing. Pretty bad alibi, in my opinion. And in further news this week, we found out that he had to do a criminology final paper, which was 12 pages long. And he had to make up a crime for his project. And he could have used any type of crime, and he chose to use a knife as the weapon of this crime. And it described it in 12 pages. And it was very well written, and he is a very smart student. Right before filming this, I found out that they have surveillance footage of Brian Kohberger that he was at Costco and also Albertsons before, that morning after the crime was committed. And the Costco he was at is right next to the Snake River. And so, in my mind, could he have thrown something in the river, in a dumpster, evidence? If he did actually go in, because that's unknown at this time, was he buying any kind of supplies? I don't know. It's very, but the prosecution is trying to introduce this into evidence. So we'll have to see during trial what he was doing around those stores. He was in Albertsons, but it's just not known if he went in Costco or he was outside of Costco. But it will be interesting. So as the evidence comes out, those are some of the major pieces of evidence the prosecution has, in my opinion. And when you put them all together, in my opinion, it really, really paints a bad picture for Bryan Kohberger. And I don't know, maybe we won't even have a trial. We'll have to see as this unfolds. But for now, I would love to know what your thoughts are. Do you think Bryan Kohberger is guilty? Do you think he's innocent? What do you think? What do you think of the evidence? What is the one piece of evidence that you think is like the biggest piece of evidence? So let me know in the comments below, and I will definitely see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and please follow and subscribe and do all the things. Thank you so much.